Hello, Bookends. Welcome to this week's 10-minute book review. I'm 10. Today's book review is going to be on The Dissent by Leah Vernon. Full disclosure, this book was provided to us for free for the purpose of review. Jumping right on in, we like to start every one of our book reviews with a star point, as in out of 10 stars, how many stars did this particular book garner? And we also like to give it a rating, as in if this was a movie or a TV show, what would it be rated? Star point. This is an interesting one. For reasons we're going to get into during the actual review, we're withholding an actual star point, and I'm going to give you a reason why. If I had to give a star point, I would say probably a solid 4 or 5. But I'm not going to lean too heavy onto that. As a rating, as in PG or what have you, this would probably be a PG-13. So jumping right on in, this book is the continuation of the Union series, and I believe that it is a duology. Judging from the way this book ended, I believe that it is a duology. I believe this might be the last book in the series, or if there is another book in the series, it may go for other characters perhaps, or maybe some future time. To jump you into what's going on, this is set in the future that's about a millennia away from now, so about 1,000 years from now. It seems as though it's set in the United States. Something just fell. But it seems as though it's set in the United States, except during this time, there has been a flip in who's in charge. So instead of it being Eurocentric, or instead of power being Eurocentric, now it is African American or Black centric. And so it's not just that Black people are in control. White people have been made into, I don't want to say slaves, but something called workers. So they have more autonomy than a slave would have back in the 1700s. Back in that time, they have more autonomy than that, but not much more. They don't really have much in the way of rights. And during this time period, we meet a young woman by the name of Avi, who is the daughter of the general. She has a sister named Jade, and she also has a friend who is named, I'm going to say Saj. It's Saige. So I'm going to say Saj. And she also has a servant who is named, I'm going to say Pia. It's spelled like P, like a sweet pea, P-E-A. But I'm guessing her name can't actually be P. So I'm guessing it's Pia. But if anyone has either listened to or read the first book in the series, please let me know if I'm mispronouncing their names incorrectly. But we have Avi, one of the main characters, Saj, who is another main character, and Pia doesn't have her own chapter, so Leo, who is another main character. So Avi, once again, she is the daughter of the general, so she is a Black woman, or a young Black girl, young Black woman. Saj is a mixed race, so she's half white, half Black woman. And then Pia is a white woman or white girl. I'm not quite sure how old she is. I'm not sure if she is like a teenager who's like underage, like a 16-year-old girl, or she's like 18 years old, like the majority of the other people in the book. So I'm not quite sure. And then Leo, who is a white either boy or man, depending on what his actual age is. I will say that it would be helpful to read the first book in the series, but I personally did not read the first book. It is on my TBR, but I didn't actually read it. And I did that on purpose because once we got the okay to get the next book in the series, I wanted to see if this book could stand alone on its own if someone didn't read the first book. So it starts off, oh, and by the way, this is a spoiler-free review because we know that the book actually comes out in November, I want to say. So this is a spoiler-free review, but we're going to get into it. So the book starts off with some kind of massacre taking place. And as you read it, you kind of see that this massacre is taking place at Avi's wedding. Who is she being married to? We don't know. Why is this massacre happening? We don't know. Who's being massacred? We don't know. We don't even know how the massacre is happening. It starts off where there's a woman standing or a girl standing, and then some sort of blue flame hits her, and she dead. She just, dissipates, what have you. Which is kind of a chaotic way to start a book, but I'm not faulting the author for that, because I'm guessing that the first book must have ended in a cliffhanger. We have no idea who Avi is marrying, though, when we start off this book. If you didn't read the first book, you have no idea. But it doesn't seem to matter, because either her betrothed is not there or dead already. So it is a very chaotic beginning. When it starts off, we see that her father, the general, has been killed. And basically everything goes from there. Jade is like, bruh, it's your fault because you're the only person who's not crying about him dead. And mind you, while everyone is being killed around her, so the workers, what the Europeans or the white people, I don't want to call them Europeans, because if they're based in the US, then they're not technically Europeans. They're just white people. Just like black people based in the US, we're technically not African, we're African American, we're black people. And so saying European kind of makes you think, are they Russian? Are they German? Are they French? Are they, what part of Europe are they from? As opposed to they're just people from the US. So as the white people who are the workers are massacring the black people who are part of the union, Avi is kind of just sitting around like days, like, oh my God, what's happening? Oh my goodness. And even as her people are being killed around her, she's like, she doesn't want anyone to be killed, which is very odd. Judging from that situation, if I was in that situation, I would be like, bro, get it done. Like, save me, save them, save us, get it done. But she's not in that position. Her sister ends up saving her to some degree. Pia ends up saving her to some degree, but her sister Jade ends up kind of throwing her under the bus as well. Then the next chapter, we run into Saj and Leo. And apparently they had escaped from the first book, and so we're finding out where they are in the second one, keeping in mind we did not read the first book. So everything I'm saying about the first one is simply an assumption. So apparently they're on the run, they're hunting for animals, and somehow or another Leo has superpowers, I guess telepathy or telekinetics, I guess. He's able to move things with his telepathy. And they go for a hunt. Somehow or another, they get separated. And Jade gets captured by a native. I don't like that the book calls native savages. I'm not a fan of that for multiple reasons, but we're just gonna go like what it's doing. So she gets captured by a native that they call savages. His name is Mia, Miah, and essentially she's tied up during this time because, of course, she's captive, and it seems like she gets tied up a lot. I don't know if the author had a rope fetish that she was using this particular character to live out for her. I honestly don't know. But Saj gets tied up a lot, or at least more than you would think. It's like if I had a nickel for every time Saj got tied up, I'd have 2 nickels, but it's kind of odd to have that many nickels off of that anyway. So yeah, she meets him, and they garner a friendship. Mama Sia is in this book. She is like, I want to say the Harriet Tubman of this book, but in all honesty, she is more hands-off, in my opinion, than Harriet Tubman. She has other people doing her work for her, kind of using other people as pawns so that she can get freedom for the other white people. And to some degree, it does work. To some degree, it does work. Essentially, this book is a cat and mouse kind of a thing. I know I keep saying, let's get into why the book, if it was rated a 4, why it would be rated a 4. This book is written like a high school sophomore talking about what they did over the summer, or someone in high school trying to write a story in, lit class. It's not written like a novelist writing a story where we have an understanding of the protagonist, we have a full fleshed out environment, we have a full fleshed out plot. Things just happen. They literally just happen. You're told what happens. They just fly at you. And you never receive the opportunity to get into the story. Everything is surface. I think the best way to enjoy this story would be if you think of it as a journaling type of story. Because each perspective is first perspective. So each person's story, when it's Saj talking, when it's Avi talking, when it's Leo talking, they're each in first perspective. So each chapter starts off with I or I. And so for the reader, it's, I don't want to say hard, but let's just say that you lose your page, right? Let's just say you drop the book or your Kindle resets, what have you. You lose the page. If you're just scrolling through, or let's say you haven't picked it up in a while, if you literally just pick it up to read it because you haven't read it in a while, you will have no clue as to who's talking because everything is I. And so that gets annoying because it's not really first person, it's first person journaling. Like to give an example, let me pull up something really quick. I made a lot of notes on this book. Let me just pull up my Kindle notes. Okay, so certain things that made it seem juvenile or made the writing seem juvenile. There were a lot of run-on sentences, which, now mind you, this is an art copy. So I'm not holding that against the author only because since it is an art copy, there is the possibility that these will be edited out in some way or edited in a way that makes them more cohesive, makes them make more sense. Let me just pull up something really quick. Okay, I'm going to read you 3 sentences. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Saj, Avi's voice echoed along the containers. I was lost, but still I didn't answer. She cut through and somehow sprang in front of me. From what I read, can you guess where they are? Or figure out the landscape of where they are? No. And where she says cut through, somehow sprang in front of me, this is indicative of how it's written. This isn't just one particular sentence. There's a lot of them. I stared at her real hard as she calculated everything in her little big brain. In other parts, I was laid out on my side with my wrists bound behind my back by sturdy twine, period, and ankles too. It doesn't make sense. It reads like a teenager writing a story as opposed to an adult novelist writing a book. And that's why I wanted to withhold judgment, because I don't know Leah Vernon. Not to say that I know any of the authors that we do reviews on, but I've never actually seen her, and I deliberately didn't look at a picture of her or look at a bio of her because I didn't want that to color my understanding of her. But the way her writing sounds, it sounds like this is someone who's extremely young. Maybe she's still in high school and that's why she's writing like this. Or maybe she's 19, 20, just getting into college perhaps, and she's writing like this. And if that's the case, then I applaud her for her efforts. If this was a high school writing, then, it's excellent. It's excellent for a high schooler. Excellent for a sophomore. If this person is 15 years old, then this is an excellent attempt at novelization for them. Great. If they're anything over the age of 20, though, I don't understand how it got published, I guess. It reads more like a screenplay, if you can think of it in that way. Like a lot of the actions that happen in the book just happen. There's no lead up to them happening. It's literally me saying, not telling you how I got into this chair, just saying I'm going to do a video. Already, no, because it's in the past tense. So I did a video for my book review channel. I sat in a chair. Where's this chair at? As the reader, you don't know. You just know I wrote down, I did a video, I sat in a chair. So it reads more like a diary entry of a person who is reading it back to themselves, who already knows the settings, who already knows where everything is, who already knows how everything is situated, as opposed to a story or a book where the person reading it is being encouraged to engage with it. And so if it was a screenplay, which is kind of how it's written, it would make more sense, because with a screenplay, everything is already set. The descriptions are already given ahead of time for each different scene. And so with the scene already set, each action follows, as opposed to someone intimating the scene with each action. And I mean, maybe Miss Vernon is well, I don't know if she's a miss. I don't know what their pronouns are, but maybe the author is a screenwriter. Maybe they're in college for writing screen and they're just trying to use that particular skill when writing a book, which, awesome. But it doesn't really lend itself to the story. Everything is surface. And so you don't care when things happen. Like, you genuinely do not care when things happen. Like, there are people dying in the book and you're just like, why do I care? But like, it's literally written in a way that does not invoke any form of emotion or any form of dedication or any form of loyalty to any of the characters in it. Because no one is fleshed out. None of the environments are fleshed out. None of the characters are fleshed out. The plot isn't fleshed out. The rebels' cause isn't fleshed out. Even the union's cause for keeping these people down is not fleshed out. Also, something else that I found very odd is the writing style itself. Avi calls her dad or her father a lot. And when she refers to him as father. This is supposed to be 1,000 years in the future. Very few people at this point in life, like at this current century, in this current year, call their father. Is dad, papa, daddy, something that invokes some sort of familiarity with them. But it's father. And then when she's talking to Jade, sister. That's not how Black people talk. Now, am I expecting the character to sound like she's speaking AAV? No. But I am expecting some sort of kinship that would lend itself to Black people. To give an example, we still say ma. I'm not from Ghana. Apparently my ancestors were. So we still held on to something. We still use headscarves. We still use certain words. We still use certain actions. Even though the vast majority of us have not been back to Africa. It's been hundreds of years. The vast majority of us have not been back. So that said, if it's supposed to be thousands of years into the future, and this is an evolution of Black people and the society of Black people and the technology and actions of Black people, why do these futuristic Black people sound like white people from the 18th century? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't sound as though it's an evolution of the African American vernacular. It sounds like a de-evolution of the European vernacular, because even Europeans don't use the term father all that often, you know? So that was odd. That was incredibly odd. Also, I don't want to down this book. I really don't, because if this is like a 15-year-old doing their first novelization or writing their first published book, then want to applaud them. I want them to keep working at it. But if this is not a 15-year-old, this is not a teenager, if this isn't someone in their first year of college, it really does feel like this is a Wattpad entry that was somehow not edited, and like there was no scene editing or anything. And then the curses are oddly placed and the actions are oddly placed. It doesn't make sense. Honestly, it feels like a teenager wrote this. That said, I don't want to appear as though I'm angry with the author. I'm not. It's just when I read this book, or when I got this book, I was expecting it to be something akin to Stephen Barnes' Lion's Blood, which is an alternate history of if Africa had colonized America as opposed to Europe colonizing America. Now, I know this isn't an alternate history. This is a futuristic tale, but it's just odd. And then also with referring to natives as savages, once again, if this is supposed to be a book based on the progression of African American blacks in America, why would we call Native Americans savages when we rock with them? We rock with the natives. Why would we be calling them savages? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't garner anything for us. Like it was wrong, but it made sense for the Europeans to call the native savages because they wanted to dehumanize them, because it made it easier to steal their land and kill them and rape them and do all the other things that they wanted to do to them. But it would make no sense for black people in the future to be calling native savages, because we would already know. We'd already know better. That's why I said, even though this is supposed to be a futuristic book or a title based in the future, a lot of the actions within it seem as though a de-evolution as opposed to an evolution, or a regression as opposed to a progression. That said, because of the writing style, and because of the way it is written, not just the writing style, but also the way it's written in the form of a journal entry, even though I don't believe that was the intent, that was what was given. And so because of that, it is very easy to tell who's the real villain in the book. Also, it's very easy to tell how the book is going to play out. You will not be surprised by the ending. Would I recommend this book to anyone? That all depends on the age of the author. If the author, like I said, is a child, somewhere between 15 to 18 or 15 to 17, or if they're in their first year of college, somewhere between 18 to 20, 20 is being generous. 20 is being generous. But if they are somewhere in those age brackets, then I would say yes, go out and get this. And when it comes out, and support. If this person is anything over 20, then they have read a book before and they should know better. And this is not the way to do it. So should you read it? Should you actually go out and get this book when it comes out? I wouldn't. But maybe you might like that kind of writing. And if so, I mean, I don't want to be too harsh. I don't want to sound as though I'm being too harsh. But I know that right now I'm rambling in an attempt not to be too harsh. So what I will say is this. If you would like to see a futuristic fiction where the tables have turned and black people are on top, by all means. God, I can't even say it like that. I'm doing my best. It just doesn't make sense. So I can't recommend this book. I am so sorry. I wish that I could recommend this book. I can't recommend this book. I do wish the author well. And I hope that if they are young, then they're able to progress on this. They're able to finesse their writing style better. They're able to do less telling and more showing with their work so that people can get into the story. I really do believe that this could be a really good story if the author just rewrote it in a way that engaged the reader with the characters and the environment and the plot. Yes. That said, this has been a 10-minute book review. I'm 10. Thank you for watching, and if you like what you see, please like and subscribe. Bye, Bookends.